9 years of creating business content taught me something that most business owners get completely wrong. So in early 2024, I was sitting in my office about to quit a business that I just recommitted to building. And I had a six-figure income, the company was profitable, and everything looked good on paper, but I wasn't happy. And that showed in everything that I was creating. So by the end of this video, you'll understand why your content isn't bringing in customers, and it's not what you think. The first lesson I learned in 9 years is this: content creation is the best way to market your business, but it only works when you're connected to what you're actually doing. And I learned this the hard way because when I started creating content for my business back in 2016, I got it completely wrong. When I was doing back then, it just didn't work, right? And I was throwing stuff at the wall. I was posting because I thought it's what I should be doing, and I was essentially following other people. It was messy, it was not effective at all, and it was just flat out boring. But then something shifted, and I discovered something between 2017 and 2019 that changed everything about how I thought about content. What I did was I started creating content for my local communities. So I started posting in Facebook groups about the local area, right? And it worked. And it positioned me as that neighborhood expert. And for the one time, right, I listened to a guru explain why to do it, and he was really onto something. But it actually felt good because I lived in these areas, right? Like I lived in my community and I cared about it a lot. So that's why I believe it worked and people responded. The content brought in clients and I was happy. This is actually the time that I started my own Facebook communities, which has grown to over 28,000 members. But here's what's really interesting. And this is something that would come back to haunt me years later. In 2022, skipping ahead a few years, I started creating content about short-term rentals in the Pocono Mountains, right? And that content absolutely crushed it. And you know why? Because I actually owned 2 properties up there. I had real world experience. I knew the real problems that I helped other people solve, right? And I had real stories to tell. So that content brought in serious business because it came from genuine connection. So here's the big lesson. When your content is connected to who you actually are and what you actually know, it works. When it's not, when you're just checking the box or you're following someone else's playbook, it dies. And if you're a local service business owner watching this right now thinking, Sean, my content isn't working, right? The first question isn't what tactic am I missing? The first question actually is, and this is what I would say to you, am I actually connected to what I'm creating? But connection isn't just enough, because even when I had connection, even when my content was working, I made a massive mistake that most business owners end up making. Lesson number 2, most business owners treat content like it's a secondary thing when it should be the main thing. And I was guilty of this for years, even when my content was working. Here's what I mean. When I was creating that local community content in 2017 and 2018 and 2019, it was bringing in real clients, real business, but I still treated it like it was a side project, like something I did when I had time, when I wasn't busy with real work, right? I was focused on running my real estate business, meeting with clients, showing houses, writing contracts, putting out fires, closing deals. That felt like it was the real business. And content, that was just marketing, right? I don't really need that. It's just a way to get more clients so I could actually do the real work. But here's what I didn't understand then, and what most local service business owners still to this day don't understand now. Your content isn't just marketing. It is the business. Think about it like this. If you're a local dog trainer, right? And you're posting on Instagram just to, stay visible, that's not your marketing. That is your business. Marketing is your business. That's how people decide whether to trust you with their dog. If you are a financial planner and you're writing LinkedIn posts between client meetings, that's not a side project. That's the foundation of everything that you're building. But I didn't get this, not yet, at least. So I kept treating content like an afterthought, something that I was gonna do when I had energy left over, right? When I wasn't too busy with the important stuff. And that mindset, that's what set me up for everything that came next. Remember when I said something that would come back to haunt me? This is where it actually started. Because when you treat content like it's a secondary thing, you never protect time for it. You never end up prioritizing it. And when life gets hard, when things start falling apart, it's the first thing to go. Which brings me to lesson number 3. And this one's really hard to talk about. Lesson number 3, your content reflects your internal state. When you're not physically, mentally, and emotionally aligned, it shows in your content and everything else that you do. And I learned this during the hardest years of my life. So in September 2019, my dad died. And then in November of the same year, my wife found out that we were pregnant again, right? And we had been trying for a while. And then in January of 2020, we found out that it was going to be twins. And then in February, we actually found out that we lost one of the babies, which was absolutely devastating. And then in March, just the next month, it was 2020, right? So we remember COVID hit. And then 3 months later, in June, my wife was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer, right? And this just set off a whole new world with surgeries and treatments. And it was just like a nightmare. And it literally went on from 2019 until 2023, which was her last surgery, and 4 years. And here's what I kept hearing in my head about creating content and maintaining the business. You need to stay consistent. You can't stop posting. If you disappear, your business will too. So what did I do? I just kept posting. I kept working, and I kept trying to maintain some kind of balance in my life, because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Like when everything's falling apart, just keep working. But here's the thing nobody talks about. Nobody talks about this. When you're physically exhausted, when you're emotionally drained, when you're mentally scattered from everything falling apart around you, you can't fake connection, okay? You can't. I would sit down to create content while I'm trying to help my wife, and I would have nothing, right? And I tried to act like I was okay, but deep down, I was not. So I posted anyway, because consistency, right? But the content was just hollow, and people could feel it. I could feel it. And there's something that I wish someone had told me then. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay for your content to reflect what you're actually going through. And it's okay to just stop until you feel better, because your audience isn't stupid. They can feel when something's off. They can feel when you're forcing it. So the lesson here is that your content will always reflect your internal state. If you're exhausted, and I know you probably are, it shows. If you're feeling disconnected, and I know you probably are, they feel it as well. If you're going through something hard and pretending you're not, your content becomes fake. Lean into it. Share what's actually going on, right? Because if you're a local service business owner right now who is burned out, stressed, and overwhelmed and can't figure out what to do, and you're trying to post motivational content or value tips, which is what I was doing, your audience feels that something is off. And remember, I said something would come back to haunt me. This is part of it, because while I was dealing with all of this, while I was barely holding it together, I was also doing something incredibly stupid, which brings me to lesson number 4. And this one is the one that almost destroyed everything. Lesson number 4, overextension kills everything. And this is where all of it comes together. This is what I was doing that almost destroyed me. This is what came back to haunt me, because I was dealing or trying to deal with my dad's death, and I was helping my wife through all of her cancer treatments and the new baby and all of it. I wasn't just trying to keep up with content, right? Like, I was running multiple businesses at the same time. You know, in 2020, I became a partner in the real estate brokerage that I was in, and we were able to scale from 18 to up to 110 agents. We were able to grow that business to over 200 million in sales. And I also started a real estate team besides that in 2020, which hindsight shows me I definitely should not have. And I was still running my personal real estate business. You know, I was still making 6 figures a year, and I was doing real estate investing as well. And I was trying to create content for all of it. And I had a wife and the kids who needed me, and it was a mess. But how did I manage all this? I didn't. I became a mess. I was overextended, completely scattered, running on empty. And it took me years to realize this. And here's what happens when you're overextended. You cannot create anything that's authentic because you don't have anything left to give. So my content became transactional, the one thing that I never wanted it to be. I was just checking another box. I was posting something, anything, just to stay visible. It didn't matter what I posted, right? It didn't matter if it actually connected. It just mattered that I posted. And you know what? Nobody really cared. I would get likes and maybe some comments from friends or family, but the actual business from it started to dry up. But I kept going because I thought that I had to. I literally thought that this is what I have to do because I'd told everyone that I was all in. You know, at our yearly planning session, I told my partner we were going to take this to the next level. And I meant every word, but a few months later, everything compounded. And I knew that I was done. My heart was not in it anymore. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to run that business. I didn't want to create content for something that I completely outgrown. And that conversation with my partner, that was one of the most difficult conversations I have ever had because I had to admit that I changed my mind. I had to admit that I couldn't do it anymore. I had to admit that I was creating content and building a business for something that I didn't even want. So here is the lesson. Overextension literally kills everything. When you're trying to do too much, you disconnect from yourself, from your content, and from what actually matters. And if you're a business owner right now who's running your business, trying to literally keep up with the social media, you're managing your clients, you're managing employees, you're juggling family, life, and everything else, you're overextended. You're doing too much. That's why your content feels forced. That's why it's not bringing in customers. That's why you're just posting to check a box. Which brings me to the hope lesson. And this is the one that changed my entire life. Lesson number 5, recalibration is possible. You can get back to your baseline. You can start creating from connection again, but you have to make very difficult choices. So after that conversation that I had with my partner, I finally admitted that I was done, and something that's been it was in my head for months. And then I had to figure out, well, what comes next? And here's what I realized. I couldn't just add something new to my life. I was already overextended. I was already doing too much. And if I wanted to build something that I actually cared about, I had to let go of everything else, which was a huge ego hit for me. So I sold my partnership shares back. I sold real estate investments that were draining my time and, more importantly, my energy. I stopped trying to just be everywhere, stopped trying to literally do everything, and I focused on one thing, which led me to creating Clear Voice Media, right? And now I have the opportunity to help local service business owners stop being overextended, stop posting just to check a box, and start creating content that is actually going to bring in customers. But here's what's important to understand. This wasn't about finding some magical tactic. It wasn't about discovering the perfect content strategy like you might believe. It was about recalibrating, getting back to baseline, creating space so I could actually show up authentically again. And now I'm creating content just like this that I fucking love and I really care about. And it comes from genuine connection, just like I was doing back in 2017 through 2019 when I was building those local communities. Same skills, right? Same person, different focus, and completely different results. So here's the takeaway. Recalibration is very, very possible, but it requires you to make very hard choices. Maybe for you, it's not leaving your business. Maybe it's just stopping trying to be on every single social media platform. Maybe it's posting less, but making what you post actually matter more. Maybe it's letting go of the clients that drain your energy so you can focus on the ones who you actually want to serve. And maybe it's admitting you've outgrown where you're at and it's time for something different. Because here is what I learned in 9 years, right? Content works when you're connected, but you have to make it a priority, not a secondary thing. And your content will always reflect your internal state. It always will. That's how it works. So when you're overextended, it shows. And overextension kills everything. But recalibrating is very possible. You just have to be willing to let go of what's not working so you can focus on what actually matters. And I know it's one of the most difficult things to do. I know because I've been there and I've done it. And if you're too busy to create content authentically, who's posting to just check a box, who's getting likes but zero actual customers, it's not because you're bad at it. It's because you're overextended. And this is what I want you to truly understand. I'm not going to sell you another tactic. You don't need another tactic. What you need is to stop being everywhere. Stop trying to do everything. You need to focus. You need to figure out where you're scattered and how you can get back to that baseline. And that's why I built the Clear Voice Content Lab. It is a free community for local service business owners who are tired of creating content that does not work. And here is what I'm going to offer you. If you watch this video to the end, join the community. The link is in the description. And then we can have a 30-minute conversation. Just you and me, right? No obligations. We'll figure out where you're overextended. We're going to look at what you're actually creating content for and whether it's even still what you want to do. And we'll map out how you can start recalibrating, right? No sales pitch, no upsell, just an honest conversation about your content and your business. Because here's the truth, and I already said it, you don't need more tactics. You don't need another guru telling you what to do, posting every single day, blah, blah, blah. So click the link, join the Content Lab, we'll have the conversation, and stay tuned for the next video.